Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I'm excited. I'm always excited for our programs because we have, in a way, a legendary Bronxite. He doesn't like being called that, probably, because that's not what he's about. But everybody knows Harry DeRienzo. This was the book we covered a couple of years ago, and now there's a brand new book, Coming of Age in an Era of Political Apostasy. I'm not aware that there's another book with the title that uses the word apostasy, but we're unique in the Bronx. And there's my buddy Harry DeRienzo. Nice to see you, Harry. Always great to
Good to
have
see
you.
you too.
Just for people who don't know, I mean, this book was about the formation of Banana Kelly. Just background before we get into what this is about. What is Banana Kelly? This is for people who may not be as old as we are. What is Banana Kelly? What was created, and why does it survive into this difficult period of time in America?
Yeah, Banana Kelly is a community organization that started out in the 70s when that area of the city, the South Bronx, was burning, and we lost 70 to 80% of our population. When the private sector and the public sector was basically looking at an area in the South Bronx saying, we don't really care about the people, we don't care about the buildings, they're not important. We need people to move, and they started withdrawing services. Well, there were a lot of people that refused to move and decided that they were going to hold on to what they had and rebuild. And some of those people lived on a part of Kelly Street that was shaped like a curve. Therefore, it was called Banana Kelly, and that's how Banana Kelly got started, by taking over abandoned buildings and trying to preserve what was there and rebuild what was there. And I guess almost 48 years later, or whatever it is, they've developed thousands of units, basically preserved mostly thousands of units of housing. It's an organization that is, the residents have a role in the governance and a say in policy. We have a strong resident council and
it works. It's the kind of housing, affordable to the degree it can be, that we always hope and dream. This is the perfect segue and the perfect introduction to this book, because in this era, when our values, democratic values, values about housing, all the things that we believe in, and the people who created and lived in Banana Kelly believe in, are being challenged across the country. And the question that you have asked in this book is, how do you come of age in that era when the philosophies that you just talked about that created this wonderful thing are hard to grasp. So tell me about your approach, and what got your mind around being able to write a book like this.
Right. So this book's a little bit different. It's my fourth book, and the first two books are mostly about my experience with community development, mostly in the South Bronx, but also in the city as well. So the themes in the books are community, what a community means. It's not just a neighborhood. It's just not, community for many people means everything and nothing. To me, community is you need commonality. You need interdependence. If I suffer, you suffer. If you do well, I do well. And you need collective capacity, which is exercised through the local institution, like a Banana Kelly.
Sure.
These themes are themes that go through the first two books. Then in my third book, I talk about community, culture, and democracy, and how they frame human progress, the three of them together. But some of my writing I felt was maybe a little bit too didactic, or it
was technical. I mean, you wrote a technical thing. I just want to throw this out, because this is right in the introduction. The younger generation will bear the burdens of cumulative greed, alienation, isolation, inequality, marginalization, environmental degradation, and other acquired debilitating conditions not of their making. So this philosophy that created Banana Kelly is now challenged by some very fundamental things across the country. You created characters. There's a young woman named Lisa, who kind of rides through this, and you trace her education about how to deal with these things. Just talk to me about, how does a person get from the point where you were, where the people from Banana Kelly were, to a point of going through all the stuff I just mentioned, so that they can actually come of age healthfully, mentally in this era.
Well, just very quickly. So I wrote, this is a fiction book.
Yes.
A lot of it is based on fact, and then projecting to a future where the challenges are very much different from the challenges that our generation faced in the 60s and 70s. So now there's a new challenge, and our youth are going to have to, I guess, mature and undertake these challenges more quickly than they probably should have to. But, it's there. And I'm placing a lot of faith in this generation. And what does it mean? Well, you've got to, first of all, believe in yourself. You got to believe in collective capacity. You cannot do everything by yourself, but people working together, uniting together in a purpose, can make a difference, can make change. You have to respect and understand history. A lot of this book has to do with history and how history informs our current, the legacy of what was there before, and how we confront these challenges. In the book, I have a lot of things in there where, one of the characters, Christopher, asks about, we live in a democracy. So since we live in a democracy, the majority rules, right? And Lisa's response is, well, no. Basically, who rules are the people who take advantage of opportunity. A vested minority, a dedicated minority, a vested elite, and one crisis can cause autocracy. Look at Nazi Germany. Look at Russia. 23,000 communists were in Russia in 1917. The country had 100 million people almost. 23,000, with the right circumstances, the right opportunity, 23,000 communists were able to foment a civil war that resulted in the Soviet Union. It does not take a majority to foment revolutionary change. So we can have change for the better or change for the worse. So don't think that it can't happen here.
I think that that's very wise. And you mentioned communism. Many people are very afraid that America is turning in that direction with the number of anti-Semitic acts, racism, taking books out of schools. And what I really appreciated in the book was her journey. Spoke to, Native Americans, to get a sense of it. And so what you do is you trace a young person's kind of going through this to try and sort it out. One thing that struck me was the dialogue about guns and the Second Amendment. People know the Second Amendment, but now it's being turned around to be used that, wow, everybody should be able to carry a gun,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. So just talk about that conflict and what it takes for a young person to get to the conclusions that you have already expressed to us here today.
Well, that Lisa came to, right?
Well, what Lisa?
There's a Latin expression that basically says, when the reason for a law changes, the law is no longer valid. So, the Second Amendment was passed when we had no state army.
Right.
And the white, I was going to say white militia. The militia was needed. It was a white militia, actually.
It was
needed, to stem aggression or to be available in case there was a war. Of course, white militia was also used to capture escaped slaves, and also to kill Native Americans. But there was a reason for there being a voluntary militia, because we didn't have a standing army. Now we have a defense budget that's probably 10 times more, 10 times larger than everyone else's combined, and we have a very we don't need the militia anymore. So the Second Amendment is kind of passé. But you don't know this. Well, first of all, people will reject that conclusion. But her position was that if you know history and know where these things came from, what the genesis was, you can come to a conclusion
and get a better interpretation of where it's at. Listen, I don't want to run out of time, but you told me because it's a fictional story, but it's based on reality. And if you can give us, we got a couple of minutes, if you could explain. Just for example, what you took out of your experience at Banana Kelly, and you use it in this book.
Sure. Then remind me. I want to make one more point about.
Yes, go ahead.
people with substance, if you remind me of that, because I get off on tangents. So like the book is fictional, but there's some events. First of all, obviously, everything leading up to the January 6th insurrection was true. And the stories about masks and some of the meetings, those are things that I experienced myself. But there's one story that as an example, Maria, who has roots in the South Bronx and like Lisa, had a lot of exposure to her grandmother, tells a story about her uncle Johnny. And that's based on, and he died in a fire on Intervale Avenue. And that's based on a true experience I had with one of Banana Kelly's workers, Johnny Rodriguez, who actually died in a fire on Intervale Avenue. And the story was that he and his cousins got together on Fridays and they stayed over at their aunt's house to have, food and drink and basically music and get together, family gathering. And there was an electrical fire during the night. And Johnny came out on the roof over the entrance to the front door. And he says, "Donde están mis primas? Where are my cousins?" And they said, "They're not here." Johnny went back into the building and never came out. He and 8 of his cousins died in that fire. And every time I when I was writing the story, I started to tear up a little bit because this guy was like he's salt of the earth. I mean, one of the hardest works he had.
And also generous in his life, because he went in and he actually died trying to help others.
One more point I want to make about the book is that, in terms of hope, because there's a lot of warnings in the book, but some people in the book that are hardened and come off as racist, but the ones that are like that who have substance. There's a lot of people in there with just full of hot air and just spewing, what people,
want to hear,
their biases and telling them what they want to hear, make them feel bad, spewing hatred. The people with substance are the people ultimately that Lisa and her group, the Circle, got to talk to and to pull away from the white nationalists because they found common cause.
And so we're going to run out of time, but so that's the bottom line: find common cause, and then use the lessons of history to move
and
ahead.
learn how to talk to one another and look at the human side.
I agree with you. I certainly agree with you. So here's the book, folks. Pick it up. Coming of Age in an Era of Political Apostasy.
There you go.
There you go. I'm trying very hard, but really, it's in a way a guideline for young people or for parents to work with their young people so that they can come of age in an appropriate way, in ways that hearken to the history of our borough. I mean, that's it. Harry DeRienzo, I'm going to tell you to keep going, but you can't stop. So it's not, that the 4 books, and I'm sure there's going to be a 5th. Thank you so much for your time this evening on the Bronx Buzz. And, we'll be here for book number 5, 6, 7, 8, as much as you want to do.
Thank you, Gary.
We'll see you around town. All right. I guess that does it. Thanks to Leah from the Bronx Times, to our buddy Harry for all of his great work, of course, to helping to develop the Bronx and helping our young people do better. And that's it. And if the curtain don't fall, the creek don't rise. We'll see you next week. Good night.